Gore, raise your hands. Glory, raise your hands. And gold, raise your hands. All right. All right, Mr. Daigle, are you ready?
Yeah.
Video camera, are you ready?
You guys have until the end of the period. All right.
Here we go.
Okay, I think that Glory is like has the biggest legacy because we were the first people to like make a settlement in the Americas, and we named Jamestown.
To add on to that, we found that settlement in 1607 in Virginia, but it was made for profit of the land free.
Also, on the Gore factor, when we did that, we also took over Native American land, giving the Native Americans in case they don't know it.
With that, it was the first official remaining settlement. There were other settlements before that, but they were not permanent settlements or they died out. Yet their legacy is part of God or glory in another way.
So you're all saying that all of our groups contribute to Jamestown?
I'm saying yes.
Yes.
So is
So-
Jamestown the only thing that is part of
That-
glory?
No,
No.
but
No,
it's
but I
the
would say it's
start.
a main,
It's the
yeah,
start
it's,
of it.
it's the
like-
start, so it's the main factor.
It's the main thing.
Right.
It's like
What
what
got it all
started
started.
everything.
And it was like the first colony to have self-government.
But going back to what Colin said about having to fight the Native Americans, is we also traded with some of them too if we could get along. And that was part of the Columbian Exchange, which was trading new things between lands that we hadn't seen before, which allowed us to know and learn how to use new crops like corn that we could sell and use to make profit.
And I agree with you that we eventually did come to killing the Native Americans for land, but at the start, it was more of them helping us.
Well, the Native Americans, we didn't really intentionally kill a lot of them. A lot of them were killed by disease brought over. And today, like, only 0.9% of all the population considers themselves Native American.
Like when the Mayflower came over, the Pilgrims, there were like 41 of them that signed the Mayflower Compact, and that was just telling them that they can have their own land to like have their own self-government and everything. They were originally supposed to have northern Virginia, and then they ended up in Cape Cod, which is like what it is now today. And like when they landed there, a lot of them like became sick, like we did, not the Native Americans, but because of like the peace that we were able to bring, they were able to like help us with the food that we need to eat and just like help us with resources, just for being like peaceful with them.
You're the guide group, correct?
Yeah.
So what related God with peace?
The Pilgrims, they
Wanted to share their religion.
yeah, they wanted to separate themselves from the Church of England because they thought of like there was too much like remnants of the Roman Catholic Church at that church, so they just wanted to kind of be rid of it, and because they couldn't do it themselves, they just wanted to leave. So that's kind of how they just wanted to be away from everybody else and just have their own colony.
So that's kind of like what motivated them to come over to America, which is why they managed to get peace.
as peaceful, but still peace ties into God and the rule of God.
Well, they didn't really, they might have gotten along with the Native Americans, but England had a few wars with France during the Exploration era. Like, some of the casualties, like, were up in the millions with one of the battles in France.
Like the 70 years.
With that though, you did take some of the land from France that they had for a period of time and value products that were there and selling those got us more profit. So I believe that gold is the legacy that England has left.
Adding on to that, when we took Canada from the French, and then we basically took what we wanted for profit after that, and we didn't need the land anymore, so we sold it back to France for even more profit.
But going back to the French fight, we didn't know what we were taking, did we? Did we know what was gonna be there, the profit, or did we take it for the land in the first place?
If you think about it, if it wasn't for us claiming the land, you guys wouldn't have found anything to profit off of.
Yes, but land is also a part of gold because that can be used for profit and finding new things.
Building crops and resources.
But besides Canada, don't we control that land still today? That we took?
Most of
Well,
majority of it.
besides the fact that after the Revolutionary War, we didn't really control anything in the Americas. So that's, the land that we controlled wasn't really a lasting legacy for England completely because it's no longer in their control, though it was influenced a lot by English people.
But no matter how much that we wanted, or no matter how badly the Americans were, no matter what, though, they're still English. They can't run away from the fact that they're still
Another
English.
thing that I think about is another impact that it still has on us today is England is the one that came here to spread self-government, which we still have, and then going along with God, they also spread their religious freedom.
Well, with self-government, they had to first revolt against England, so that was the American Revolutionary War, which killed like almost 50,000 people.
Yes, it kind of had to fight against England's more controlling government to get the self-government.
So you're also saying that religion motivated us along to fight for our freedoms with God by our side?
I think that like kind of has to do with like worry because like we like won the Revolutionary War, or like the side that like wanted freedom won, and like that like was a big thing because then we could, you know, be free in the Americas.
I have something to add on that too. After the Revolutionary War, a strong sense of manifest destiny was created, which added on to us fighting, contributing to war for new land to claim as America. And also, what also contributed was the gold rush for California to get rich. But all in all, those two contributed to taking land and leading us to our present day United States boundaries.
If it wasn't for glory doing what we did, you guys wouldn't have any profit, and the God wouldn't have been able to spread.
Well, it's not completely true because if it weren't for the wanting of profit, we wouldn't have gone to much of the lands that we took anyway for glory, much so. So you could also say if it weren't for wanting profit off of gold, we wouldn't have glory either.
Back to what Ireland said about how, just like how Glory kind of like set all of us up. Just kind of like how Spain, they kind of started finding the Americas and then everybody else wanted to join. And what the pilgrims and people that wanted to follow God, they kind of wanted to separate themselves from everybody and just have, like, believe what they wanted to believe in and just be able to, like, follow, like, what they wanted to follow. And just being able, like, in Cape Cod, and there was another colony that was made in Massachusetts because a man named Roger Williams, he was a minister and he preached like just about God and like against what the Church of England like had to say. But then he was banned from where they were originally at, but he left and brought people with him and was able to make a new colony and started another like colony of religious freedom like based on that. And like what we still have that today. Like,
And I agree with you.
Yeah, I have to agree with that because that's one of the more lasting things we have today, more so than land that England took is wanting religious freedom.
And I would also say that God was a very large contributing factor to our mostly free country today with our right to a religion we choose, you know, freedom of speech, that kind of stuff.
just believing what you believe in.
So I would agree that God does contribute to that. But I would also be curious if we had no sense to take more land when we first settled, would we have ever kept going? If we were just relying on a sense of God and going for separation from the world, would we really have kept going and controlled or spread it across North America?
Well, like you said about like Jamestown, and they like started the self-government and originally with religious freedom, and then there was Cape Cod with religious freedom and the new colony in Massachusetts. So we kind of like just started building more and more colonies and just.
Along with what you just said, Hunter, none of that would have, all the land that we gained was mostly due to Gore, so without Gore, we wouldn't have all the land that we have today. Yeah, it contributes to glory.
Another thing that I have to add though is like she said, if our colonies are what spread everything. And if you think about it today, most of those colonies have been turned into the states, and that's what we're known for, is our states.
A very large, or a time frame that was very important to our spreading was from the 1600s to 1700s, which is when we sort of started becoming a country as a whole. And many of that was through just the sense of gaining land. Like
Mainly the East Coast.
the East Coast is what I
But back to taking over the East Coast as colonies, the reason we did that besides the Pilgrims wanting religious freedom, the reason why England sent over ships for more colonies like Virginia and eventually taking over New York was because it was a great fishing coast. So we could gain more profit off of fishing and trading fish, and there was easy trade because of the Atlantic coast, and everyone wanted to come to the New World to explore and get new things, so we were able to trade with many other countries during that.
And with what Ireland had said about us making states and having states being a legacy, some of those states were made for profit, just singularity for profit.
They were
So-
still claimed though, before they
Yes,
were made
but-
for profit.
Yes, but they were sought for profit, and they wouldn't have been founded if they weren't going to get profit.
Another thing you gotta keep in mind is if it wasn't for us claiming the land and then us going along with Gore and bringing in the slaves, you guys wouldn't have been able to produce all that profit.
The South,
Well,
the South economically would have never been able to, stay strong.
If it wasn't for us bringing in the slaves.
well, yeah, but the slaves were brought there for profit.
Exactly, but you gotta think about it, if we didn't claim the lands and then bring in the ships for you guys to make profit, you guys would have had no way to make profit.
But the whole reason we claimed the land was for profit in the first place, so if we weren't searching for profit, we would never have claimed the land.
Legacy lasts, like, kind of changes from different parts of the legacy from era to era.
I think Kat's got something going there, because I think that we started with God. We started with God, and that's, can we all
That's
agree
the
on
whole
that?
reason why
We all
went
can
in the
agree
first
with God,
place.
but sooner or later in time, God was still a big part, don't get me wrong on that, but it soon contributed into gaining land for profit, and through that, we killed lots of people.
And buying the slaves.
Yeah, slave trade.
So,
So it kind of changed from God to glory, golden gore.
so,
Another thing to put it into perspective would be if you think about it, we went there for God, but then when we got there, and this is where gold comes in, is we sat there and we wanted to basically rub and brag in everybody's faces about our power that we have. So you guys did play a big part in that, about basically exaggerating all the power that we had and control with all the gold that we were able to produce in the trade.
But what
Like,
we,
I will not argue with that, that is very
Well,
true.
but what we are here to discuss is what is the most lasting thing that has happened with
I
England.
know.
We don't really own any of the land in America anymore. Yes, they are English, but they're mostly English, but we don't have that land anymore. But England is still one of the like big name countries that has a lot of money and makes a lot of profit.
Do we
Oh,
still
I
think that
understand
like,
that.
do you still think that RNGs are the lasting legacies? Like, do you still think it's, or do you just think it's
Oh
gold?
no, I still have to go back to what Ireland said, and I have to agree with the glory part, because when we fought France for land, it was mostly for glory because of our rivalry with them, and we just wanted to flaunt in their face that we were stronger than them, which also contributed to gore with the battles we had.
So what Colleen is saying that we all contributed to each other's
Yeah, legacy.
legacies.
But like, back to what Ireland said about how, and like what many of us have said, like it all like kind of started on
Oh,
God.
God.
It-
And,
but,
like,
but like I also thinking that it started with God, but would it really have kept going with God? Like honestly.
well, like I said earlier, they kind of like left, like not leaving Jamestown, but they started in Jamestown, then with the Mayflower and Mayflower Compact, and Cape Cod, and then Massachusetts, and I'm assuming that it just kept going, because like today, like there's a bunch of religions that we have in our country that are still like believed by many different people.
But the English didn't really have many, like Spain had missions going out to convert and make the natives more independent, when we more just wanted to get rid of the natives and take the land for ourselves instead of converting them to Christians.
Religion was a very undertone of what was going on.
Yeah, like even though we didn't like, we did convert, but not maybe like, not as too heavily as Spain did.
We weren't
But we
focused.
kind of wanted to like convert like some of the other people of England. Like some, like how the Pilgrims left and had their own colony, and there were still people on the Mayflower who may have wanted to stay with the Church of England and not like leave what they have grown up with. Yeah.
We saw the church being liberated after the conflict.
And maybe they got kicked out of the church and wanted to start somewhere where they could be.
Yeah, like back before we had left to come to the Americas, the people, like, they were called separatists, and they didn't want to leave. Well, they wanted to get rid of the Roman Catholic, like I said earlier, but the Church of England, they kind of started thinking of these people as rebellious, and they were killing them. And like now, we don't see people getting killed for what we believe in, like a lot.
But you gotta keep in mind that kind of goes along with gore.
Yeah.
They want to escape the
I
They
I
wanted
have
to
to say-
escape it because we don't have it now.
Well then, if we put it in that perspective, I'm kind of leaning towards gore, because if it all starts with people getting killed because of what they believe in, and then they decide to leave, then none of this would have happened unless England decided to start killing people.
And with gore, we can't just say like, it doesn't happen now. It like, because of gore, it's the reason we're here today. And like, the American Revolutionary War, without that, we'd still be part of England, we'd still have, France would still be controlling like where we live today, because
I mean,
I
you can all,
have to agree with Laura too, because basically if you think about it, if we weren't able to bring in those slaves and fight those wars, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere, honestly.
I'd say it seems like each G is like a cause and effect. Like you start with one G, and because of that, it ends up with another.
So right now, do we think that like God and gore are kind of like the starting building blocks
Yeah.
of it?
You know, I just gotta say that if you guys can't tell, gore seems to be involved with everything. It's involved with
Yeah.
God, it's involved with glory, and it's
Yeah.
definitely involved with gold.
but
Yeah, because like we brought in 18% of all slaves into the Americas that helped us create money and sell crops, which helped the new colonists survive.
effective.
Well, the Mayflower came over because we were persecuted, so I'd have to say that, yeah, probably was the starting point.
and also gore when the religion may have started to not be the number one subject. Because you know how we had those eras where it started with God, but eventually it pretty much stayed getting gold.
Yeah.
Gore was still there, even though
Gore
religion-
kind of like, it kind of started with like God, but then it ended up as glory, but like God still traveled with, no, not God, Gore still traveled like with them. It didn't like stop in one spot.
Yeah, no,
I
pretty
would-
much our whole country just relied on gore to get our way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with gore because even though like it changed from God and glory and gold between the time we had the American land, gore was in every one of
It
those.
stayed there, it just
Yeah, it
really.
stayed.
So
I agree.
can we,
It's kind of like a rope, and we're kind of like knots in that rope. Different knots at different places, but the rope is still there.
so
Yeah, it was good.
can we come to the consensus that gore is England's legacy?
The last one was this. Anybody
It's kinda
really
like
like
a-
argue that?
Well, the
Anyone?
only thing I would say on that is gore isn't really lasting as much today as it was back then.
Not
It
necessarily.
still was like a building
Yeah,
block to
It was
it.
a large building block, that's just the
But if-
only thing I could.
Right.
If we want to talk like that now, if we want to talk present day, I mean, our whole world is controlled by gold, money. Our whole world is that, but the
The
But-
reality of it is, you wouldn't
We
get
still-
anywhere
Without
Yeah,
without gore.
we still have gore today, but it's like not with us.
As
It's
bad.
like in
It's
Iraq
not in
and,
our,
you know,
yeah.
crimes
Yeah.
and
It's
stuff.
not really involved with.
English is not.
And now gore isn't really used for taking land or stuff, it's more for protection.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still used for taking land, but mostly for
Everything.
protection.
For protection of the land that was already taken.
So we've come to the consensus of gore and loss and legacy.
I would say so.
Kind of like, I don't know what the word is, like the lasting legacy, but it's not like what you would think it would.
It's not,
Right.
it's not good.
It's not
just
good, but
like
it's still
biggest-
there.
It's like a scar.
It's,
It's like a scar.
Yeah, it's like a scar.
well, it's not, England, I mean, England is still huge in our world, but they can't bully everybody around like they used to.
Right,
And they did that through Gore.
so yes to Gore.
Mhm.
Ready?
Wow,
All
very
right,
good.
give them a round of applause.